Welcome back to another episode of the Amateur Hour Podcast, and we have a very special episode today. I am very pleased to be joined by Mr. John Bitove. How are you doing, John?
I'm great. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Mr. Bitove is the founder and former owner of the Toronto Raptors, and I really appreciate his presence today. But I just have a few questions for him today, and we're just going to get right into the discussion. So, you got a degree, a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Marketing from Indiana University, and you also have a Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of Windsor. And a lot of people who are similar to me in my position in terms of being in a sports administration program would like to wonder how you managed to turn these degrees into somehow founding and being a partial owner of the Toronto Raptors.
Well, my undergrad business degree was in marketing, so I think when we did a lot of the early analysis about basketball in Canada, would it work, could it work, how would you market, everything else, my undergrad degree helped to understand what the questions are that we had to ask, what kind of research had to get done. So it was qualitative. And then when we would show it to the NBA or share it with sponsors, ultimately, it was fact-based. It wasn't just, hey, we think this is a great idea. And then, on the law side, I think law is just a great degree to have whatever you do in life. You learn so much about negotiating and, the great thing what law school teaches you is reasoning and how to try and see both sides of an issue and figure out how to deal with it. So I use both degrees throughout my life.
I agree with you 100%. What I particularly enjoy the most about law, I'm not taking any law degrees in the moment, but what I liked about studying it in high school was kind of learning the psychology behind a negotiation or debate and how you can kind of get the edge in the debate or in any negotiation process. And this is what you must have done, because when you're in the process of creating the Toronto Raptors, you were not the only team involved in the creation process. There was 2 other teams involved. And what was the process that you used in order to beat out these other 2 groups and get the rights to creating the Raptors?
Well, the ultimate tactic we went with at the end was to not use high-tech and fancy pitches, but to just sell ourselves as individuals and as a group committed to growing the sport of basketball in Canada and bring in really the culture of basketball to Toronto if they gave us an NBA team. So we were very different. We were not flashy or glitzy or anything. We're just very humble.
And obviously you spoke about in that guest talk that I just listened to about the hockey bias within the city and also the basketball bias in terms of players wanting to come to play in Canada and how that may have been a difficult process. So you spoke about, you wanted to market to the younger generation instead of the older demographic, let's say, of Canada, because you saw that a little more fruitful for yourself to get the younger demographic involved. And can you just make a bit of a comment on how you went about defeating the Canada bias in terms of players not wanting to come play in Toronto?
From day one, early on, we hired Isaiah Thomas, who all the players respected. He had been president of the union, and he had won 2 NBA championships. So,
one of the best to play.
Exactly. So he had instant credibility for us, and I just think over time, the organization has built its reputation as being top notch. That players want to win more than where they care where they're living.
And the question I'm most interested in asking you is, what was it about your way of conducting business for the Toronto Raptors that made it successful, whereas I'll call them your expansion twin, the Vancouver Grizzlies, could not find similar success and only lasted 6 seasons in Vancouver?
Well, I think, I was lucky. I worked with a lot of good people, and we had maybe the fact that the Grizzlies and Canucks were owned by one group at the time didn't allow them to do things differently. But when we started the Raptors, we kind of had it's a bit of a joke, but a rule, if the Maple Leafs are doing it, we're not doing it. So everything we were doing was to try to pivot off them and to be different.
So you spoke a lot in that guest talk about how you had to change the dynamic of the hockey town, and even the broadcasting crew struggled to kind of showcase an NBA game because they were just so accustomed to hockey that they couldn't transfer over. So you think that because Vancouver, how they did it there, it was the Canucks, like, along with the Grizzlies in the same ownership, that they tried to market it like they did the hockey.
Arthur Griffiths owned the team at the time. He was a great guy, but he was not a basketball person. I was lucky I went to Indiana University, so I understood the sport of basketball.
School. Yeah.
And the culture of basketball, which is, somewhat as important as understanding basketball when you're starting a team here. So I think that, we were never afraid to take risks, and as I said, being different from hockey was a goal as opposed to being the same.
A real go-getting attitude is what you suggest. Last question on just the Raptors is, you spoke in your guest talk about, it's kind of shocked me when you said this. Somebody asked you if you think the Raptors can reach the marketability level and the market of the Lakers and the Bulls, and I'll add the New York Knicks into that mix. And you said not only would they be able to get to that level, you said they could succeed them and, become an even bigger market. Can you just retouch on how you think the Toronto Raptors can become a bigger market than the behemoth that the LA Lakers are?
Well, it's simple. There's 29 teams in the USA, and there's one team that's not in the USA.
Yep. Canada's team.
And I think that the Raptors have a real chance of being the world's team. That it doesn't matter whether you're in Mexico or Morocco or Malaysia. People do like to see the Americans get beat, and I think that the fact you're the only non-American team is an asset.
And just one personal question I have: how did it feel? And describe your emotions in the process in receiving the inaugural James Naismith Award of Excellence by Basketball Canada.
It's pretty amazing. It was 2 awards that night. One was for Steve Nash, the other was for me. Steve's our greatest basketball player ever.
Yep.
And Dr. Naismith invented the game, so to be recognized by Basketball Canada as someone who was important to a sport that I loved my whole life, it was one of my highlights.
And just my last question, do you have, any advice you want to give somebody who wants to aspire to be in a similar position that you are?
As I said in the talk, just volunteer, get a job in sports, network, learn people. Don't expect you're going to get this great job right out of university or college. Take whatever you can get, whether it's a summer job or involved with a sports team in your community, and these roads always lead to bigger roads down the future.
John, I really appreciate your time. My words cannot express my gratitude for you taking the time to talk. That'll wrap up this episode. Thank you again for joining me today. And the guest talk was incredible. I'm very happy I got to be a part of that. But thank you. Come back soon for more daily content on the Amateur Hour Podcast.